I'm going to declare a quorum and call the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, May 28, 2019 to order. Clerk Patrick, please call the roll.
Present are Mayor Keith Hedrick, Councilors Lisa McCabe, Reginald Stanford, Renovate Depot, Rashad Carter, Finance Director Ron Newhouse, Clerk Deborah Patrick. Excused are Deputy Mayor Jamal Beckford and Councilor Minerva Ortiz.
Before we start, I just want to let the new councilors know this is a committee of the whole. This is where new information is typically brought to the council so that we can discuss it, deliberate, and debate it. The votes are typically taken at the mayor and council meeting. So actually the vote, there are some of these that we will move to the mayor and council meeting at 6:3. So I'll ask for a motion to move this item to the mayor and council meeting at 6:3. And we'll go through the motion in a second, and then we'll move it. But there's some information on here. Typically, you will have backup information in your packets. There are some things that you don't have backup on this time today. Group referrals, that's because we're going to be making the referral of that information to the group. And then the Groton sale is more, it is informative from me. So we will start off with 752, which is a Thayer Mahan presentation. I've asked Richard Hine to come here and to introduce us to Thayer Mahan. For the council that you may or may not know, the Groton Heights School was, an RFP was put out to repurpose that school, and after it went through the RFP process, Councilor Depot was on the review process, on the review panel rather, with, let's see, I think it was Councilor Heed from the town and other members of the town that selected Thayer Mahan based on the best use. There was a presentation, there was a lot of behind the scenes work and a lot of keeping this quiet until certain things were met. Those wickets have now been met, and so Richard has presented to the town council, and now this is his opportunity to present to the city council. And Richard, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and staff and members of the general public. My name is Richard Hine. I'm the C.O.W. of Thayer Mahan. We are a marine autonomy company located currently in Groton on Leonard Drive over by the airport and the industrial park. As the mayor explained, we responded to an RFP that was published in, I think it was August or September of last year regarding the Groton Heights building. We were shortlisted in October, interviewed in November, and I think selected as the preferred developer in January. So for those of you who haven't seen or who have seen it, I apologize for doing it again, but for those who have not, I thank you for this opportunity to introduce our company and our concept plan. So my presentation, I'm gonna try to speak fast because I saw your agenda and it's loaded. So I'll speak rapidly, but feel free to interrupt with any questions at any time. First part of my presentation, I'm going to introduce our company and what we do, and the things that we do now are the things we're going to propose to do up at the Groton Heights building. And then the second half of the presentation, we'll talk more specifically about the site plan, the building, and our plans for that site and building. So Thayer Mahan is a company that specializes in marine autonomous solutions. So we provide maritime domain awareness by using autonomous robots or systems with sensors placed on them and communicating via satellite, remotely piloted for government and commercial customers. We provide we have a 24/7 watch section that stands watch in our operations center, and we'll go into a little more detail. But one of the things we do that's unique is we provide what's called search as a service. So we don't just produce systems and sensors. Our preferred model, although we will sell them, is to continue to own and operate, and then provide the service to our customers in whatever realm they're looking for. So the concept behind the company, our name is a little unique. Alfred Thayer Mahan was a famous naval historian who wrote a book in 1890 called The Influence of Sea Power on History. And he changed naval thought basically for a century. He was the guy that came up with the idea of large capital ships, battleships, aircraft carriers, submarines over time. Contributed to the great naval race leading up to World War I with the Brits building the dreadnoughts, Teddy Roosevelt's Great White Fleet, etc. That morphed into aircraft carriers in World War II and nuclear submarines and other large capital ships after then. We are in the process, we believe, of changing the strategic paradigm for the way potentially naval wars are fought or intelligence is gathered in that in today's world of where it's very difficult to buy large capital ships and keep them at sea. It's a lot more economical to do unmanned sensors, which are very expensive. So we call them highly scalable, distributed, connected forces. And our goal is to take on, not to replace obviously submarines or aircraft carriers, because we can't do those things, but we can do some of the low-end missions like search and ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. So this is just our strategic vision, and that's a typical Virginia-class submarine that clocks in at about $3 billion, fully staffed up. Our typical sensor, the one on the left, is called Outpost. It's an acoustic sensor. The one on the right is an electronic warfare sensor. Cost about $1.5 million to produce. So we have two main areas of interest. One is the energy sector, so doing things like environmental monitoring, whale monitoring, seabed surveys for the wind industry and oil and gas industry. And then the second is monitoring and detecting illegal maritime activities. So think counter drugs, anti-submarine warfare, illegal migration, etc. Who we are, the company was founded by myself and my partner Mike Connor. It all started here in Groton, Connecticut. We were plank owners on the USS Pittsburgh, served together from 1984 to 87 here in Groton. Mike went on to earn 3 stars and spent 37 years in the Navy and retired as the commander of all submarine forces, United States. I did what they call 5 and dive. I got out, and I've been an entrepreneur and a businessman ever since. But back in 2015, when Mike was retired, he came to me and said he's got this idea. He's been trying to push the Navy towards autonomous systems and robotic systems and sensors, and you can only do so much in the, I'll call it the big defense acquisition world. So he wanted to give it a shot as a small business. We formed the company in January 4th of 2016. You can see our employee count was 2. That was Mike and I. 2017, we were at 5. 2018, we finished the year at 18. Currently we're at 24, and we'll probably be at 32 to 35 by the end of the year. So we're rapidly growing. We employ kind of this diverse set of skills. We have kind of the old guys, I'll call them senior management, Mike and I, who provide strategic direction and business development, but we have a lot of young, really smart engineers from a whole host of schools, and we actually have a couple of Fitch high school graduates, which we're excited about. So, but that's who we are. So what do we do? Search as a service. We have an ops center which does 24/7 monitoring. You see a picture of it there. So we pilot these machines remotely via satellite. They report back information. If it's acoustic information, we do the curation or analysis of the data. We employ a couple of retired senior chief sonarmen, and we have about half our staff are veterans, mostly ex-submarine guys, but we do have 1 Marine, 1 Army, and 2 Coast Guard. So we haven't had a need for an Air Force vet yet, but maybe that will come someday. So that's what we call search as a service. So the command and control aspect. We do data analysis and integration. So this is, you hear the term machine learning, deep learning. You know, when you ingest large amounts of data, it's all about how you can correlate that data, integrate it into systems, and package it back to your customer in the form that he's looking for. So we're an entirely cloud-based company. All our virtual machines are in the cloud, all our security and cyber safety is in the cloud. Like I said, we do all this right now out of a 14,000 square foot facility on Leonard Drive, but we're growing rapidly and there's a large demand for what we do, so thus our interest in Groton Heights. We do some, this is a picture of our warehouse, and you can see some of our wave gliders, a couple of our guys working. We do what we call light assembly, and we're not really manufacturers, but we make circuit boards. Most of our secret sauce is programming and software and integration, getting sensors and machines to talk to each other. We'll do final assembly and testing and calibration of the systems in the Groton Heights building as well as here on Leonard Drive. In three and a half short years, we've amassed a portfolio of 10 patents, 10 trademarks. We have strategic partnering agreements with the Office of Naval Research and the United States Southern Command, as well as industry partners Raytheon, Boeing, Wingman, and Kraken. Raytheon and Boeing you probably recognize as large defense contractors that they build some. Raytheon builds our towed array sonar, and Boeing builds wave gliders. Wingman is our artificial intelligence partner, and Kraken builds a system that we call C.O.W, which is for deep water surveying, which we'll talk about a little bit. Our trajectory, we formed in 2016. We had sales of $40,000, which is basically Mike and I doing some consulting just to say we did something positive besides build and develop machines. We got our initial patents approved. 2017, we did $400,000. In 2018, we patented C.O.W, C-Picket. We moved to Groton. We started out in Mike's garage in Mystic. We had a small office over in by the train station in Mystic before moving to Leonard Drive. 2018, we did $3 million in sales, and this year we are under contract to do at least $17 million, but hopefully closer to 25 or 30 million. So as we signed our first prime contract, more employees, more patents, strategic partnerships, and this is some of the other contracts we've worked for U.S. Fleet Forces, DARPA, Woods Hole, the Coast Guard, General Dynamics Electric Boat, Southern Command, etc. So what is our portfolio of technology? We basically have two divisions, what we call persistent surveillance systems. The picture on the left is a acoustic sensor, so it's based on a wave glider platform, and we tow a towed array similar to you'd see on a submarine at depth, which means below the layer. We pilot this machine remotely. It's energy harvesting, can stay at sea. The longest we've had at sea is 90 days, but we can probably stay at sea about 180 days without touching it. Similar system you see next to it is called C.O.W. That's an electronic monitoring. Obviously you can tell by all the antennas, but for intercepting marine radio traffic in the HF and VHF realm. The second division is called Port Security and Seabed Systems. So we do seabed surveys for things like disaster recovery after a hurricane runs through to clear a channel, for infrastructure inspections, bridge footings, pipelines, cables, oil wells, manifolds, etc. So we do what's called seabed surveys, and then sub-seabed, which is our low frequency sonar can go about 20 feet below the seabed to look for rocks, pipes, other obstructions, etc. Couple newswire items. We were hired by Ocean Infinity to locate the Argentinian submarine that sunk the San Juan about a year ago after 40 nations sent search gear and could not find it. Ocean Infinity hired us to, and this was really based on our submarine experience, to kind of piece together where we thought it would be, where we should search. And they actually used the synthetic aperture sonar technology that we use, and it was found in about 6 days in 3,000 feet of water. We partnered with Pangeo Subsea to do subsea-bed surveying. Congressman Courtney, we opened our command center for full-time in January, and Congressman Courtney came and spent half a day with us. He's been a huge supporter of what we do, and also with the move towards autonomy in the Navy. As you all know, he's now the chairman of the House Sea Power Committee. So, Groton Heights, the building will become our permanent corporate headquarters. We plan on keeping our facility on Leonard Drive, and I'll say now, any of you are welcome to come tour. After we met with the town council, we invited them for a tour, and they spent a couple hours with us, and they found it kind of fascinating, and if you guys want to organize a tour, you know, we're happy to show you guys what we do. So the summary of the project, it'll be our headquarters building. It'll be offices, engineering, research and development, and light assembly. The plans and drawings are contained here, and we'll go through the plans in a little bit. We're going to repurpose the gym for basically our light assembly and warehouse. We're going to repurpose the main building for offices, R&D, and engineering spaces. The building's 27,000 square feet. It's approximately 2-acre lot, built in 1912. And you know, some of the traffic circulation issues, we'll have 2 accesses on Smith Street. We're not going to have any access to Monument Street. We'll talk a little bit about the land swap that's proposed with the Bird Memorial Library, abandoning a paper street on Library Street. There'll be minimal truck traffic, maybe 3 to 5 trucks a week, certainly way less than the number of buses that used to transit that neighborhood. We'll probably have about 43 to 45 employees there with on-site parking. We'll go over the site plan, and there's a little bit of infrastructure improvements required. The electric, there's a transformer that's in the way of our renovation, and we want to drop the services underground. We'll connect to existing water and sewer. Gas is apparently not available, and I'll talk a little bit about high-speed internet up there that came about post preparation of this. So why is it a beneficial project? One, it's a historic building, so it'll be completely restored. The most green project you can have is to adaptively reuse an existing building. So we'll do old mold, lead, asbestos remediation. The main building will look almost exactly like it looks now, except the front and rear will be reversed, which I'll talk about. It's going to contribute to the Groton tax base. Right now, obviously, it's not generating anything. As a school, it doesn't generate anything. And our analysis will show that the potential to generate revenue, both primary tax revenue, but also secondary revenue from employees and, you know, restaurant visits and hotels, et cetera, far outstrips any other, say, residential use. Highest and best use of the property. The land swap would be consummated. There'll be no access on Monument Street. We'll retain almost all the existing trees, plus we're going to do significant landscaping. We've proposed a kind of a meditation garden area that would sit on the Bill Memorial Library property, but their hope is that the fences come down between the monument, our building, and theirs, and people who visit the monument or who work at our building or visit the library could all use this for study, meditation, or events. Minimal site lighting. We're not going to have any big parking lot lighting. We understand it's a residential area, so we're not going to have site lighting. We'll have, you know, the required down lighting on the building. High-tech jobs, like I said, phase 1 projected 43, phase 2 potentially another 40. Average salary will be about $80,000 a year. There'll be more temporary local construction jobs as we build it. And it should be a major economic driver for the city and town, between taxes, fees, employee retail spending, meals and lodging taxes, sales tax, secondary spending, et cetera. But I think the blue line really sums it up. It'll help solidify Groton as a hub for undersea innovation, marine robotics, and high-tech maritime solutions. And that's kind of a regionally speaking. People ask, well, why'd you locate in Connecticut? You know, you got Alabama, you pay no taxes. All these other states everybody sings their praises, and probably against all advice, we decided to locate here. And there's a number of reasons. One, you got terrific infrastructure for this particular business. The hub of knowledge for marine robotics is all in New England. If you start at MIT and Woods Hole and Yale and UConn and kind of drew a box, you know, Groton is dead center, and then you got the Coast Guard R&D Center, subbase, electric boat, on and on and on. So for our type of business, this is the place to be, and we hope that we can spur, attract other companies related in this industry to come to this area. So let's start with the land swap. In the RFP, there was a proposal, a letter generated from the Bill Memorial Library, talking about swapping if you, the pink, the left slide represents the existing site plan for the Groton Heights School. So you see we have kind of this flag lot with a sidewalk, with access on Monument Street. So what the library proposed is in the next slide. They have parcel B currently. Our site is parcel A, so they propose swapping. We would turn over parcel A to them, which they desire. They would turn over parcel B to us, which would keep us all on kind of one site. So partnering with BML, we have met with them. We've agreed to, if we get approved, consummate the land swap. There's a paper street dividing parcel B from the Groton Heights parcel, and it's kind of in line with the current Bill Memorial Library driveway, so we would abandon the paper street. And then work together on grants, partner on events, remove the fences, build a community park, and bring in high-speed fiber. So let me touch quickly on a couple of those things. Partnering on events, we've had a number of meetings with the Bill Memorial Library folks, a small subcommittee of their library, then their full board. We had their board down to our site for a site visit and tour. We already, one of our founders is a guy named Dr. John K.O., and he's known as Mr. Innovation. He's a Harvard academic that's written all kinds of books about innovation. And one of the projects he's currently working on is modernizing libraries and bringing libraries into the 21st century, making them relevant again. So we scheduled a lecture for him at the Bill Memorial Library, and then the library folks invited all the regional libraries, and we had about 40 people attend. That was a really terrific event. It generated a lot of ideas. They connected us with the Fitch High School Robotics program, and we met with those folks, and we're going to partner with a bunch of the young kids and assist on some of the projects. They have some needs for like 3D printers and laser cutters and some of the stuff we have. Removing the fences. Oh, and high-speed fiber. One of the big things that came out of the library meeting was, they have very poor internet at the library. I guess I don't know who the current provider is, but I know it's provided for free, and they're grateful for that. But we met with CEN, which is the Connecticut Education Network, and talked about bringing in high-speed fiber. And the Bill Memorial Library connected us with them. They had proposed to bring it up there one time, and it cost like $50,000, which is way out of their budget. But I've met with CEN. We plan on bringing high-speed fiber into our building and then back supplying it to the library, essentially at little to no cost to the library. So they're excited. So those are some of the benefits of having a corporate partner in a neighborhood like this. Site plan. So this is the site plan we submitted as part of the RFP. So on this site plan, you can see a couple things. The dark burgundy is the existing building and gym. Directly behind the existing building, you see this, it's labeled as community gardens meditation area. So that's what we propose now. The library would prefer, they love to look at the back of the school, which is the current front entrance, but they don't like looking at the ugly back of the gym. So asked us if we could move it over, and obviously we're fine with that. Also, this would allow for future expansion beyond what we call phase 1 into a future R&D and engineering annex, and potentially more land and assembly space if we need. So the summary of this is we consummate the land swap. The main entrance would be on Smith Street. No access on Monument. Community garden meditation area we talked about would be open to the public for meditation, reflection, relaxation, and dining. 2 entrances on Smith. Minimum site lighting, no parking lot lighting. Street trees, we plan on planting street trees along Smith Street, and then we'll have to obviously redo the parking areas, which are in pretty bad disrepair, and landscape the front. Loading docks and truck delivery would be on the left. I guess looking at the building, the right side of what is now the existing gym, but it would not be facing the front. There's no room in the back to do it. So, and abandoning the paper street. The building itself, you can see on the left, lower left, is the existing rear of the building, which faces Smith. The existing front of the building is on the right, that faces Monument. So just picture us renovating the back to look like the front. So that's what I say when the back becomes the front. So our front entry, which will face Smith, will be very attractive. We actually have 3 proposed entrances, 1 which matches the existing, 2 which is in the rendering there, and we have a 3rd. The reason we did that is when you apply for historic tax credits, which we will be doing with the federal government, you're allowed to renovate the exterior to a certain percentage. So if they say just do it like existing, we're fine with that. If they allow us to do a little portico entry, we would do that, so we'll see. So basically on the exterior, you got new roof, new windows, and front rear elevation reversal. The other thing to note is the gym building, which is on the right, currently is just a brick face, you know, very institutional, and there's a green metal door and brick, no windows. We are proposing to add windows to that, 1, to match the main building and make it attractive from the street, but 2, we need light in that facility. It's a very dark space. So that would be the elevation plan. What are we doing in the basement? We got a small, let's say, start with the gym. The gym would be our assembly and warehousing area. The basement would, for the most part, be climate-controlled assembly. So when you're doing work with circuit boards and stuff like that, obviously, you need climate controls. That we'd remove the stage in the gym, we'd add some windows, renovate the bathrooms in the basement, and open up the rear of the basement so that it's a big open space. And we'd add an elevator to try to make the building compliant with current ADA regulations. On the first floor, again, the front and rear would be reversed. We're going to build an entry foyer with controlled access. We are a cleared defense contractor, so we do handle classified materials. So that would be our controlled access. Then we'll have more R&D work, an employee lounge, kitchen, flex space for engineering, office, and research. Top floor would be engineering offices, executive offices, conference room, 2 more command centers like you saw in the earlier picture. So we'll probably have a Pacific Ops Center, an Atlantic Ops Center, and then we'll keep the Ops Center in on Leonard Drive for commercial things like oil and gas and wind. And then if someday in the future we need to build an engineering annex, this is just a hand-drawn rendering. It would look just like the existing building, so we'd architecturally match what's there. This is just a little bit about me, who our architect is, our land planner, and our finance company. This is the basic terms, and again, a lot of this is repeated since we talked about consummate the land swap, do some infrastructure, relocation of transformers, connect water lines, environmental remediation by Thayer, Mahan, asbestos-lead mold, confirmation of zoning approval, 2 permitted accesses, abandoned the paved streets. I don't want to keep rehashing this because I know we're on the clock here. And then this is kind of recent activity. So we talked a little bit about community outreach. We've had a great engagement with the Bill Memorial Library. We presented to their micro board, their full board, and we've done tours. We did hand-delivered flyers to about 50 or 60 mailboxes in the Groton Heights neighborhood. We did a meeting and a presentation for them. We had about 20 attendees up at the Bill Memorial Library. And then we invited them for a tour. 3 came, so we toured 3 of the neighbors through our current site. And then we did this Making Libraries Relevant again, which we talked about. Local government outreach, we presented to Groton Town Council. We did the initial interview with them, the executive session presentation, and we just did a public presentation about 2 weeks ago. We've toured the town council through our current facility, and again, I'd extend that invitation to any or all of you folks. We've met with the mayor of the city of Groton, representatives of planning, economic development, fire, police, and building departments. There was a Facebook announcement, which surprised me a little bit because I didn't quite know it was coming out until a reporter from the New London Day called and said, hey, can you talk to me about the building? And then we interviewed with her, toured her around, and she wrote a pretty positive article, which was out about a week ago. We've met with the Connecticut Education Network about high-speed fiber. We talked about that. Other recent activity, design and planning. We have a memorandum of understanding, which is in final draft, and I have a meeting with the folks at the town to finalize, cross the T's and dot some I's on that. We've already hired our architect. He's done the existing conditions plans, documented and formatted the building in CAD. We've got preliminary landscaping done. We've done some preliminary inspections on hazardous material and conceptual budgeting and preliminary quotes with contractors. There's a brownfield grant that was awarded to Groton Heights, which will assist us in getting rid of kind of the trifecta of nasties, mold, asbestos, and lead. We've applied for a Groton infrastructure assistance grant from the town. I am now serving as a board member on both TRIP and the Naval and Maritime Consortium. We had a meeting in Hartford with the new Economic Development Director, David Lehman. And my message to David Lehman was real simple. We think Connecticut's a great place to do business. We want to help recruit more businesses, but we don't think he's very good at getting the message out. So we're willing to help with that. And like I said, we've had great engagement with the state of Connecticut Department of Labor. We have an apprentices program set up, an IWT training program, and we're part of the hiring veterans program. So I'll probably just blow through this. This is some of the technology we use for surveying. There's our command center. A little bit about seabed mapping, and I can get a copy of this to anyone. But C.O.W. is our seabed surveying gear. But this is the the bottom line for us is this will be another step towards making Southeast Connecticut the national headquarters for marine robotics and maritime high-tech industry. So we hope to open in the fall of 2020 and have 40 new employees in there within the first year. So anyway, I probably went over my allotted time.
Very good.
I tried to get as much info out as I could. So I'm available now or later or future for questions, comments.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions or comments for Richard?
I have a
Councilor McCabe?
I have a question, yes. You said you sent out about 60 flyers to the neighbors, and 20 came to your meeting, and 3 came to your tour?
Yes.
In your opinion, what do you feel the neighborhood opinion was to have a business?
It was really positive. We had one, I'll say hard no, never want a business in the neighborhood, but I told him my goal was to win him over time. And he came to the tour, and by the time he saw the tour, I won't say I completely won him over, but he likes our business and said that's, he understands pretty good use. But he'd rather see a school or something there, and then the rest of the comments were positive and, a lot of engagement. We were there for 3.5 hours answering questions and stuff. So it was actually a lot of fun. I got to meet a bunch of the neighbors, so it was positive.
Okay, thank you.
And if any of the council was interested in taking a tour of the site on Leonard Drive, I can get that set up. And it's actually pretty cool to see what they do there, and then to go into the command center is very impressive. This is, in my opinion, an awesome company to have in our backyard with the technology. Councilor Depot.
I was just wondering, I know that in the original presentation you had a timeline for when you were wanting it to be built, which obviously was pretty aggressive from what I remember. Do you have an adjusted timeline for when?
So don't take this in any way as a negative, but we're moving at kind of the speed of government, which is actually pretty damn quick. And I've developed properties in Florida, Virginia, New York, in a previous life, and I'll say, your local governments are very efficient and organized and move quick. So right now, we hope to close I hope for August, but I'll say September to be conservative, and then we have work to do with your planning department and building department to get through permitting, but hopefully we can start construction late fall. Because my goal is to occupy the building by August of 2020.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome to the city of Groton. Okay, the next item will be the 754 Parks and Recreation Lawnmower. Mary? I realize I got a bunch of you out there. What I'm going to do is get Mary out of the way quickly, and then we can spend the time that we need to spend the time on the budgets.
Good evening, all. A few things today. So the first thing is, we're looking to purchase a lawnmower for our maintenance crew. A number of years ago, we were asked to look at some ways to be more efficient within the department. Our largest lawnmower right now has a 6-foot deck. So we were looking to get a lawnmower with a larger deck. So we're looking to purchase a lawnmower that has an 11-foot deck. So that way we can, especially the flat areas like here in the building, the ball fields, down at the beach, behind the dispersing house areas, that we could do more efficiently if we had a larger span of mower apparatus. We budgeted a number of years ago. I know the mayor has had informal meetings with my staff in regards to how efficient right now we mow every day of the week. And we start at one location and we kind of work around the city and and then we repeat it all the following week. This would enable us to just get the mowing done by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then have time to do some of the other stuff like trimming and weed whacking and getting to some of the other parcels that are a little not as visible, I'll say, that we can kind of get to them, and that way the beautification of the city is in a little bit taken care of in a more efficient way, and then they can get to other things like all our picnic tables and benches we make in the parks, so we can stay on top of those when they get damaged and have those repairs done as they happen, as opposed to waiting until maybe the grass stops growing, which it does sometimes in August. It gets hot. But so come forth with you today with the quote from the company of the mower that the boys test drove a number of years ago, and the equipment that they've spoken with the mayor about that they would like to have on as a piece of equipment, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay, are there any questions? Councilor Depot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So did we pursue any other quotes, or we just looked at this one company that sells?
A number of years ago when you put this in the budget, we did have.
Thank you, West Side Middle School Chorus. West Side is the best side. We have nothing else on the agenda. I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting for tonight. Thank you for coming out.
What is the current life expectancy of the one we already have with the 6-foot?
The one that we have right now is 10 years old, so it's pretty much past its prime. We could keep it if we have other means of mowing, because it wouldn't be used on a daily basis like it is right now. We replaced that one we got that one in 2009, so it's 10 years old. We replaced one we had another one that was 13 years old. We had an X mark that we replaced with a SCAG. So it's kind of one of those things with the amount of grass, and we've gotten more grass or more areas to mow since we've purchased that mower. We didn't have the Costa property when we purchased that mower. We didn't have a little parklet over by the Elks on Shinnecosta Road areas that we've expanded in departments and acreage to mow, so it would help put some life back into the SCAG, the smaller mower, because we'd have the bigger mower to get some of the bigger areas.
So do we anticipate, if we're buying this mower with the 11-foot deck, and we're gonna also still continue using the other mower at the same time, so when the older mower breaks, do we anticipate buying another one of those, or will the new one that we're buying be sufficient for all uses?
I think what will happen is we get the larger one, the expectancy of the smaller one will extend, because we won't be using it as often on the larger parcels. So like the ball fields, which is all flat, which takes us, it could take us, an hour and a half to mow, may only take us 45 minutes. And that way, the smaller areas so I can't use the summer memorial because we push mow that. Like I was trying to, some of the smaller parcels where the bigger mower won't fit in, we'd still have to use the smaller one, but we wouldn't be using the number of hours on that machinery, because we wouldn't have to do it like front here. We would knock it out with the larger mower, and the smaller mower might sit. So that day it doesn't have any usage, so the wear and tear of that mower, the expectancy lasts longer.
So to answer your question, add a little more to the question, we haven't decided yet whether we would replace that mower. I mean, this is going to extend the life of the mower. We haven't decided yet if we'd replace that mower or not. well, they'll need to come and talk to me and say, okay, here's what the 11-foot deck mower does. Now that the 6-foot mower's done, here's the impact of that, and then we'll make a decision and come to the council with that. Does that better answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
But I do have one more question.
Do you have to
Go
get a
ahead.
bigger trailer?
What's that?
Do you have to get a bigger trailer?
No, because it has wing, it's kind of, I call it the one with the wings. It's got the so it comes up so it does fit on our trailer.
Mm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, this makes it, and that's significant, one, for trailering it, but also, you may have noticed we have a park house shed that's being built now.
Mhm.
And my commitment was that I wouldn't go after purchasing this until we had a place to put it. And so we're now gonna have a place to put it, and when that folds up, I forget how wide the footprint is, but it's not 11 foot, because they both fold up. Now, it doesn't fold up 190, he said it's like a 45, but it is a smaller footprint to bring it in. Jeff, something else? You had another question?
I'm all set.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of June 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Okay.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. A 755, cameras at Eastern Point Beach.
Okay, so I was asked to look into, as you all know, on April 28th, we had some vandalism, a large amount of vandalism done at Eastern Point Beach. So I was asked to look into security cameras down at Eastern Point Beach. I have met with Rue Security. We did reach out to Communications Plus, but they weren't available at the time to get, right now they're too busy to give us quotes and pricing. So I'm gonna kind of go, this is the top level, this is what we want, all in, like the big picture, and then we can maybe shorten it if we had to. So the big picture would be if we got internet access down at the beach, we could have it so that our phone system, we'd have the monitor, we'd have the recording system down at the beach, but we'd also have access to an app where we could have the security right on the supervisor's, at the police station's phone. So whoever's on the supervisory rotation, that phone would have the app to see what the activity is on that camera. To do that, we would have to work with Thames Valley Communication to get a cable access into the beach. So they would trench from the pole to the Zabersky house. It wouldn't be a large trench, but they would trench, get a line and come up through the basement of the Zabersky house to the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor, they would put they're looking at putting I want to get my terminology right, a point-to-point link from the 3rd floor window of the Zabersky house to the 2nd floor window of the Tyler house. So that way they wouldn't have to dig up any other part of the property to get cable to the Tyler house. And then that would connect to the camera system, which would be stationed, there's gonna be 3 cameras on the Tyler house, one kind of above, should I say where they're gonna be? Kind of above where the water fountain is, the corner of the first aid station, and then the left side of the arch of the stairwell, so that we have all angles of the beach covered. And there'll also be a hardwired camera on the gatehouse, so we can see traffic coming and going. So the fees attached to this, so there's 3 different companies involved, obviously, because TVC is separate than, I lost my page, bear with me. So the TVC TVC fee would be $1,929.67 to get that trench in. We got a proposal from CFX Solutions. They're the ones that would do the cameras in the buildings to do the point-to-point of $21.71. And then the complete camera system with the monitor and everything for the Tyler house and the gatehouse from Rue Security would be $25.50.
Is that thousands or hundreds?
2,550. Sorry. So that's if we went that way and had all of that put in. Now we could just put a security system in there that I go and look at every week, every Monday, or every morning and afternoon, and run the security. Or if we have an incident, the police come down and we don't need the internet part at all. But I thought I'd start with what the high end would be, and we could work our way down. I mean, or part of me is like, do we go? Our beach was violated, I think, and a lot of people were very passionate about what happened to that facility on the 28th of April. And I think, going forward, and doing it completely the right way the first time might be the best solution, but I bring that information to you.
Councilor Depot.
Is there any ongoing costs? I mean, I know, the plan is to have the police department monitor it.
Yep.
So from
That's
that end, we don't need to hire a separate, that's not any additional cost, because they're already monitoring cameras, so that, right, so that's kind of great, there's no additional cost there. And we already have contracts for cybersecurity and all of that included, so none of that would be, like, these would be the only costs, would be the cost that you brought.
That I'm aware of, yes. And this is the.
Internet,
You're
yeah.
talking about like a monthly, that's what you're talking about,
That's gonna be
monthly.
waived.
Right.
Yeah, the monthly internet cost is 0. I asked.
Okay.
They're gonna donate that service.
Oh,
Go ahead,
I'm
Councilor
sorry, I
Depot.
had one more question. If we're bringing, internet access to the beach for this, is there a plan to have public internet access at the beach?
We could
Yeah.
incorporate a Wi-Fi program down there with a password, yes.
Cause I think that would be great.
Yeah.
But it would not be connected to our public Wi-Fi, so
Right.
it would not be filtered.
Right.
Just wanna make sure
Go play
everybody's
Yeah.
aware it's gonna be the same.
Pokemon Go down there.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I don't know. Basically, it would end up being a hotspot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
perfect.
Right.
Hotspot, yes.
I mean, that's all it would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we filter, we wouldn't want anybody to be able to, a young adult with an iPhone to be able to access
No.
Yeah.
Yes, it would not be connected to
appropriate
here.
material,
Right.
but that wouldn't happen there. Wanna make sure.
Mhm.
Right.
Totally.
But
And more a statement, I think, I added up all those costs, comes to $6,650.67. I think that's more than reasonable. I think it's,
How much you paying for the repair for
I-
the benches, I don't know.
I think that's more than reasonable, and I've been to the beach several times since the vandalism, and there are always people there even at night after they're not supposed to be there. There's, probably teenagers just messing around on the beach, but, I think it's great if we can get this area covered. That would be wonderful.
any other questions or comments? Do you have enough information to bring this to the mayor and council meeting, or do you have more research you have to do?
Nope, I got everything I asked for today, so I could, even though I was.
All right, because we're gonna need, well,
But what-
you didn't get that in your packets, right?
No, I
So
just
we'll
got
need
some
to
of
get
this stuff
this-
this afternoon, yes,
Okay.
so I will make sure it gets to them for next
All right,
week.
in that case, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
So,
Okay. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Any last thing, 681 Youth Advisory Committee?
All right, so back in February 2003, there was a youth advisory committee that was established through a resolution. And it was to look at programs for, we concentrated on the middle school age group, because that age group kind of gets lost in the shuffle. They kind of outgrow some of the younger programs, but they're not quite old enough to work yet and be part of our employment staff. So there was a committee put in place. It consisted of 13 members, which was a very large group. They were charged with trying to see what the kids wanted first and foremost. So they designed a survey, they did a survey monkey, they got the kids' input, and we got feedback of the top 4 things the children wanted at that time. So you're going back, 4 or 5 years ago. And it was babysitting, dances, swimming, and cooking. So the group they're challenged to find ways to implement some of the things that the kids wanted. Either through existing agencies that might offer that, like the Bill Memorial Library might have been able to do something, through our department, Parks and Recreation, through the town Parks and Recreation departments, things that might be already out there and help enhance and or share with the kids in that age group what was going on. Good things have came from that committee. We have our Friday night outs here now in January, February, and March for our middle school students, both at Westside, Sacred Heart, and Cutler. We do offer, we at one point had 7 people instructed to teach babysitting class. We still have 3, and we offer that at least once in the fall and once in the spring. And we actually have expanded, and we offer it to the town of Ledger's hired us to teach the babysitting to them, and we charge them for that. We did do a cooking program with Ernie Koshmeter at through the public school services at Westside for a little while back in 2014, 2015. The problem line is the committee kind of died. we went from 13 people, and then all of a sudden people are leaving, and the kids kind of leave, you know, their middle school kids are now in high school, and they stop coming to meetings. So by the last meeting that we had in November, I believe it was, November, let me see, hold on, 2016, we had 5 people coming to meetings. So the recommendation that came from that meeting with those 5 additional, you know, people left, was we'd like to see this revised or revamped or brought back, but have a 7-member committee. And maybe reach out to somebody from the Bill Memorial Library to be on the committee. Reach out to maybe somebody at each middle school to be on the committee. Doesn't necessarily have to be a city resident, but somebody who interacts with that age group, you know, and have them come in, and we have to do a survey again, where, you know, it's 2019, we're doing programs for kids that, this is what they wanted in 13, 14. I don't know if the kids' desires and changes, you know, needs have changed and what they want, but I would really, and maybe not have it meet monthly, but maybe every other month, and then have like 3 people have a 2-year term and 4 people have a 3-year term, and so that way that there's overlap, so if we do have a parent or 2 and their kid rolls into out of middle school into high school, we can replace them. Because what happened is a lot of them, or some of them are parents and their kids weren't in middle school anymore, and they really had they lost interest because their kids were off to doing other things. So it's just something I've been trying to revamp, get back up. Let's make it happen again, because it did bring out some good things for the kids in our community to have this advisory committee.
Any questions or comments from Mary?
I have a question.
Councilor McCabe?
So, this committee is made up of adults, and you engage the kids by doing the surveys?
We reached out to the committee came up with certain questions to ask the kids of what they wanted. That's the initial start, and then it was looking to see so babysitting and, school dances was one of the big things, but we weren't in the schools, so we found another way to do it, and that's how the Friday night out came about. And we have music, we don't turn the lights all the way off. We have entertainment for them to do. We have the bouncy houses and different things. And it was one of the things the kids wanted. And it was up to the committee to find out who could facilitate that activity for them.
Did you ever think of having one student representative from each grade in the middle school participate as a liaison to the?
I did, the former mayor and council put this committee together. I didn't actually have any input. I was just the staff liaison to it, because it kind of fell into kind of what our department did, and we were asked to kind of be the staff to it. But it's kind of, a lot of it fell back on us. You know, we do facilitate 2 of the programs that came out of it, with the babysitting class and the Friday night out. We've kind of taken those and gone with them.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie did a great job with the food program when it was going on. He had a family cooking and a kid cooking program, but it kind of fizzled. I don't, you know, he ended up at Westside. I don't know if he used that location because he had a bigger kitchen. Whether or not it drew people in, I don't know. I'd have to look back and talk to him about that. But I think we'd like to see it come back.
Okay.
I think it's needed.
I don't think we have enough information yet to bring us to the next meeting, right? I mean, I can't we don't have a resolution ready because we don't have members, those kind of things. So at this point, this is more advisory
I'm not sure
until such time that I can fill this in, and then.
Could it be something that gets referred to the Parks and Recreation Committee of the council? So there was
Sure.
charges that they had, maybe those need to be looked at and changed.
All right, then I'll add that to tonight's. Sure. Councilor Depot.
I was just gonna say, this might be something too that, just all of us or anyone, you know, kind of paying attention to these meetings can, if you're chatting with someone and they express interest, have them contact Mary and, let her know, cause then maybe we can get a little list of people who are interested before we have to, address it again.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a great idea.
I don't know how the first committee was put together.
Yeah.
I wasn't part of that process, but I'd be glad to be part of it this time.
Absolutely, I intend to have you in the middle of this, for lack of a better term. Okay, any other questions or comments for Mary? Okay, that's it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay. I am gonna deviate a little bit. I'm not gonna do the 550 yet. I told you I was gonna do that. Because, well,
No, whatever you want.
because the person I thought was gonna be here is not here, and I wanna get in to the utility stuff, so I'm going to do 749, which is the Groton Utilities budget. So, Director, good day. So the charter says that the proposal's gotta be sent to us by the 30th. The mayor and council shall approve the final budget no later than June 30th. So we have it on today's committee of the whole, and then, if you decide to move it, we will move it to June 3rd. So I'll turn it over to you.
First, I'd like to thank Katie, and all the general managers and all the staff who took the time to put this budget together. It was a lot of work. It was the first go-round since David Clark has retired. So there was some challenges and some hurdles that had to be overcome, and they did a great job of putting this together. So I want to thank them to start off. What we did this year, what they did, was we tried to keep this budget very similar to what it looked like in the past. I know there was questions and some requests for some changes, but for this first go round, without, except with David retiring, we wanted to keep it pretty much the same to get all of our arms around it being new to this budget process, and with David being such an instrumental part. So in the packet, we did put together the summary slide sheet, which is this one here, which is the one that David used to present to the council. We can go through it if you want. My plan was just to kind of just skim through it. It was given out instead of just reading something to you that you've already seen. And then also in the packet, so just gonna kind of go over the packet that stuff you received, was the proposed Groton Utilities, it has draft fiscal year 2020 budget positions. Okay. So it was a smaller version, and Ron's gonna hand the bigger one out.
When you can read.
So what this sheet does, it goes over all the positions that are budgeted. And open up at the current time. So you can kind of see almost like the org chart. There was also an additional slide that was attached, which was Groton Utilities water versus benchmark, which was this slide here.
That's because the electric one.
Was included in the budget package, and then the actual budgets themselves. So those are kind of all of these. I think you received the budgets again in last week's package, and we received them at the end of April. So, and with the staff here, there's members from all the different departments who touch these budgets. So as we go through them, if there's questions for the individuals, Sue's here from IT, Tina from customer care, and
Can we go around and
actually,
each person stand up
Yeah,
and just
and-
say what you actually manage, what you're in charge of? Because this is actually, when you add it up, electric's a $55 million revenue company. Water is a $10.5 million company. Sewer is about 4, and if you add Basra and we do on the side, that's another 17 million. So before you're talking too far, we've got a, what was that, $85 million company. So it's substantial the amount of people it takes to make this happen, so.
Just go around one minute. Dan Boats, Manager of Communications and Community Outreach.
Dan also has the web pages and is the public outreach and communications person.
Tina Daniels, GM Customer Service for Groton Utilities, July 1st with Basra Light and Power, and also Ledger WPCA.
So Tina leads customer service here and everybody that reports in there. You'll see them on the
flow chart as you expected.
Mark Byron, I'm the new general manager over electric, water, and wastewater.
Sue Blanchett, General Manager, IT Department. That's why I talk about cyber things.
Len Mediavola, General Manager of Key Accounts, which includes the conservation initiatives and the analytics and our solar programs and dealing with our major customers, which would be the air gas, sub-base, visors, all of the growth.
GU Finance Department, the account manager, and since David retired, right now I work with several roles for GU Finance stuff.
Good evening, Rick Stevens, Water and Sewer.
Brian Roach, Manager Engineering. I supervise the project managers and the substation personnel, plus the engineering for the electric stuff.
Go ahead, Randall Supernat, last but not least. Manager of Operations for electric, NERC, NEPA, Auburn, Groton. I support my group. And Mark and Ron, thank you for your use.
Okay, go ahead. How do you want to go about this?
I think we just go through each of the divisions.
Sure.
And kind of, we'll keep it at a very high level, and then as questions may come up, we can either answer them here or get the appropriate person to answer them.
Sure.
And if we need to do some more research to get back to you, we may not have all the details with us today that we're picking up this, but we'll get everything answered. So we'll start with the electric division. Again, in front of all of these budgets with the numbers is the narrative. Again, very similar to how David presented this. I'm not going to sit and read through all these, but if we flip to, there's a chart here, which is about 5 pages in. And this is the one that kind of always gets looked at, and it's our benchmark and our comparative to.
Which one?
It's
Which,
we're in an
which,
electric.
your electric?
Yep. Is all the way in the back of your.
It's like page 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like.
Well, it's electric budget, right?
Yep.
So go to page 5.
It's right after the narrative.
I think I was in a different order. Right? Electric.
Yep. There you go. You're looking for that.
Yep. Mine's in the back.
Yours in the back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so somehow the ordering got a little.
Well, and we're double-sided, so
Saving paper.
we are.
Yeah, so it's towards the back, ours is like electric in the back. In the back, like further back.
So they have a PDF version.
And then you're looking at that.
I had two copies in mine.
That's the.
You have it?
So there's a different
Yeah, no, right,
It's that
in the
big
back of the
packet.
book. The packet.
You got it?
I think it's
In the back.
No, it's
Yep, two
That's
shots.
I think it was PDF.
I had made packets for them, and then additional ones I think were put.
No, that's, keep going up here.
So I think you ended up with two.
We had one
I
last
heard
week.
you.
And then we got a black one this week.
Actually, all right, let's start over. What happened was the budgets that were presented went in a backwards order. It went from sewer, water, and
Right.
electric instead of electric, water to sewer. So we can start with sewer if you want, or we can continue with water.
I
Now
can
that
we
we're already-
now have everybody on the right page. We're not
got it?
gonna start,
Okay.
we're not starting over.
Okay.
All right, I think we're all okay on the
We're gonna
page.
be, we're gonna
Yeah.
be flipping backwards.
Okay.
Right here, we got it.
Might as well have them start, because we're gonna be flipping backwards.
Well, we're already on electric.
Yeah, but do you wanna do that 5 times?
Well, what we can do is we can do electric, and then we can start in the beginning.
Yes.
So, what this, schedule on this chart tells you is kind of puts a comparison with the GU rates versus the, competitors, or the benchmark. So it starts with the 4-1, so the first, which is the green, and yours is black and white, so it would be the column all the way to the left in all three of these categories is the benchmark as of 1/1/2019. The middle column in all of these is the GU as of the 4/1/2018 rate, and then the one all the way to the right will be as of the 4/1/2019 rate change. So you see that the rate, the 4/1/18 to the 4/1/19, there is no significant change in the rate. It's very minimal across the board. And then again, the top row being the benchmark. So that's just kind of a comparison to allow you to see where we are in comparison with the benchmark as our rates go.
What is the benchmark? What is that?
Eversource.
Okay.
It's Eversource's latest rate
Okay.
at the same time period as the GU rate.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's just more of an informational page so you can see where we are in the rates. The next page is the contributions to the city. And this is a page that got put in a few years back. And this goes to show the benefits of what the utilities provide to the city. Not when we go through the city budget, we always see the cash contribution, the 4 million, which is the second to the bottom line, which is the return to the city, and the actual contribution. But there's also a bunch of other things that the utility does provide. They do pay rent for the municipal building, the concerts in the park, the rent for the watershed, some building maintenance, a portion of the finance department, a portion of the HR, and the big piece is the IT. So it just kind of just breaks it down, showing what other services that the utilities does provide to the city, that if we didn't have them, that this would have to be either not existent or funded in a different way.
Thank you for the concerts in the park, by the way.
Thanks, Dan.
Totally enjoy that.
Municipal utilities are taught to be very proud of this because that's the reason they exist.
Mm-hmm.
So as we flip through, then we'll start getting into the numbers of the budget itself. The way that the budget is laid out, it's fiscal year 17 actual, fiscal year 18 actual, projected fiscal year 19, approved 19 budget, and then the proposed 20 budget with a couple of variances based on the 19 to 20 budget and then the 18 actual to the 20 budget and the fourth column. So we'll actually just, the page one is a revenue, just kind of going through all the different sources and all the different types. So if we flip to page 2, we'll kind of do it as a summary level. We'll go through. So the total budgeted revenue, or proposed budgeted revenue for 2020 is $55,108,000, which is $592,000 more than the prior year, or 2% or 1% increase in budget. On the flip side of that, the power cost, the proposed budget is $32,137,000, or up $633,504. So it's pretty much offset. We get to the total operating maintenance expense. And again, that's broken down, and you'll see that in all of these budgets. There's the operations for the department. So for here, it's the electric operations. It starts off with the payroll categories. That is truly payroll and operating expenses for just the electric. The customer care, the IT, and the admin are all allocations based on the 60-30-10 split. 60% goes to the electric, 30% goes to the water, and 10% goes to the sewer. And that's based on customer counts, I believe, when they did that a few years back, well, last year when the sewer came out, we changed that from 65-35.
And that's for the overhead accounts.
So you can see all the detail that makes up the top half is the payroll, then the other half is the actual operating, the regular expenses. So when the total operating maintenance expense, the budget proposed budget's 15,597,711, or an increase of 4% over the prior year budget of 632,650.
Rob?
Yep.
Question. For the, if we're looking at the operation maintenance expense subtotal after the electric operations, customer care info, or IT administration, all that, it looks like our projected budget for this year is over the approved budget for 2019, but then we are not increasing it for the 2020 budget. Is that?
Which line was that? I'm sorry.
The lines are not numbered, but under operation maintenance expense, where it says electric operations, customer care, IT administration,
Yep.
that subtotal there, the projected for 2019 is 200,000 more than the budgeted, but then our proposed budget for 2020 isn't asking for an increase. So was there some expense this year that we paid in that category that we don't expect for next year, that we're not?
In the operations line.
Yeah, Eve, correct me if I'm wrong. What we did is we took 6 months actual and then took 1/12 the rest of the year. So if the beginning of the year was heavy, it just came in with an estimate that was heavy to the end of the year.
So you don't, so we're not anticipating the number being incorrect for next year, not needing more, cause it looks like we maybe undershot it for last year and might be spending more on operations than we thought.
It's an excellent question. The goal when we go through the budget process is to correct the upcoming budget to be as close to what we believe we're gonna spend as possible. So it looks like it might be wrong, but that was in the discussion. We just came in at what we thought we actually would have to come in next year.
Okay, so you don't anticipate the 2020 budget being overshot by 200,000 again in operations?
I don't think so. But we'll also see that as we go through the actuals in the other version of this, when we go through the actuals. I'm not aware of those numbers being what we're seeing. We're under budget right now.
Because we've been having problems with our fuse cutouts, the porcelain. And we've been spending a lot of time and a lot of labor hours replacing these cutouts that are bad with polymer type that will last longer. We don't anticipate replacing that many in the next fiscal year. And that cut our labor down as well as the material. But we've been spending a lot of money and a lot of time on replacing those cutouts that we don't anticipate for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
So then, coming down to the operating earnings, which is the very last line, the proposed 2020 budget has a estimated operating earnings of the 3 million, just under 3.5 million, or a reduction of the 1,082,000 from the prior year budget. And again, based on a 1% increase in revenues and a total of, not the actual percentage here, but the more of the increase in the expenditures of the 20s and 27%, 11%. You can kind of see all the percentages for each of those lines going down through. So the expenditures did outweigh, the expenditure growth outweighed the revenue growth. But it's still a healthy operating earnings. It's still projected to earn money at the end of the year.
It's also the way we did the budget. We checked what the return to the city calculation would be if we commit on budget next year, and that keeps the returns of the city whole. So operating earnings have to meet certain income targets for that to happen.
So on the next page, it just has the other charges, the other interest, and for the merchandising and the jobbing, income and expenses, the bond interest payments, and stuff outside of the operations. So the projected budgeted net earnings would be just under 2.7 million. Again, the decrease of the just over 1 million, which really flows from the operating earnings.
Councilor Depot.
Is there a reason that we expect the miscellaneous income to decrease almost completely?
This one?
No, it's,
Goes from 285K to 10.
That's because as a, related as a, commission, as a revenues, and we advertised for 3 years, and they ended up with December of 2018, so we're not going to expect to have that revenues anymore going forward.
So a few years back, we did a conservation update to the subbase, which had a significant amount of revenue for the company.
and it was amortized over
Mm.
the 3 years.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
So that's the budget from the operational standpoint. With this budget, also when we flip on to page 4, which goes through the cash flow. Actually, that's fine. We flip a few more pages back, we'll go right, it's page 6, and it's for the cost estimated for the non-bond capital projects. So from an operational standpoint, all the day-to-day is included in your operational budget. The non-bonded capital projects and the bonded capital projects are all major projects that are done that end up going onto the balance sheet as capital assets and depreciated over time. So these don't end up in the operational side, but it is projects that will be budgeted and will expend money. So you can see the list of the non-bonded capital projects with all the project descriptions and the notes on the side. So the total cost this year for non-bonded capital projects is just under 1.8 million. Last year, the non-bonded capital number was just under 1.4 million, so an increase in the non-bonded of just about 400,000 over the prior year. Then the next page has the bonded capital projects. These funds, we've already issued the bonds to do this work, so that money's already come in, it's just sitting and waiting for these projects to be completed, and that's where the funding mechanism is. And you see that the total bonded projects is just under 3.3 million. In comparison to last year, it was just under 3.5 million, so a reduction of 220,000 in bonded capital. And that's truly based on the work that is projected to be done in the current year.
Do you know how many of these projects were on last year's list?
I don't have last year's list, but it's gotta be about the same amount. Need the total number?
Well, so what we're saying is there's 3.2 million in bonded projects we expect to be completed this year. I'm wondering how many of these projects were also on last year's list. Expected
You mean
to
a
be completed
carryover?
and
So
didn't
the-
get completed.
Right, so the question is carryover. What was scheduled for last year that we did not complete this fiscal year is gonna be carried over to the next fiscal.
Traffic lights on Main Street, there's 3 traffic lights we were supposed to do this fiscal year. That'll carry over to next year, that's why it's back on the.
Okay. Any other projects from electric?
We had some relays at Buddington that we were supposed to replace, we replaced about 50% of them. So that was a carryover there.
The Pleasant Valley transformers you didn't have on the list this year, did you?
I didn't have it on, right, it's not on the list this year, that's a new project to replace a couple, large transformers at a Pleasant Valley substation, that's a new project.
And then the SCADA field devices and distribution poles are just, they weren't on the list either, but every year you put a certain amount of poles in. So you put an amount of money in there, so it's about $400,000, and every year you just keep replacing poles, and that's how you fund it. Sometimes there's also, in the top of the page before for non-bonded capital, if you look at the mass asset lines on top, it's it's standard operating procedure to carry mass assets, because you know you're gonna replace transformers, streetlights, underground streetlights, and various underground services and stuff, so you have placeholders that have funds available, so that when, you need to replace a pole because it fell, or you discover that it's bad, you have actually funding to do that.
And if you see P6, see Project 6, the buttons and substations, replace the 400 breaker. We're gonna be close to completing that by July 1st. But I put it in there just in case we weren't gonna meet this schedule for some reason.
Any other questions? Is that it for electric?
And then on the next page, which this will go across all three of the budgets, it's the IT, non-bonded capital, and the customer care non-bond, so those are split the 60, 30, 10. So you'll see that a portion of it is allocated to electric, water, and sewer.
How are we doing on auto pay?
Want me to field that one? Yeah. I'd be happy to. We've had a difficulty with cooperation between our third-party vendors and completing the vulnerability assessment. It's your problem, which has become our problem, and it's delayed the project since December 10th as our kickoff date to complete the assessment. They have, on several occasions since that time, agreed to proceed and stopped, and agreed to proceed and stopped. And we are now in forward slow. We're getting part of the work done, and we anticipate that we may be able to wrap up a major portion of the assessment within the next couple of weeks.
This is the vulnerability assessment, Sue? Okay, so what this is we're setting up, we have one vendor to set up and do the service. We've hired another vendor to do an accessibility correction, a vulnerability assessment of that other vendor to make sure that security software is in place and that it works and that we're not going to be in jeopardy and that we're protected. Is that close?
There are actually two vendors, customer service vendors, that provide both the customer portal and the online payment.
Right.
And there's a third vendor
That's doing this
working with
vulnerability.
them to do the assessment. So it's, everybody's pointing fingers at everyone else and saying it's not their problem.
And Councilor Debo.
Is there anything else on our end as the city, not to put the mayor, that we could do to make that go faster?
I think we've made just about every effort we can make to make it go faster.
But
we don't got
there's discussion. Do we want to proceed? If folks are willing to accept the risks associated with our customer data being exposed to the internet and payment information being exposed and unsecured or unknown if there are vulnerabilities, we could start tomorrow. So there's two sides of it. There's the risk assessment and proceeding with caution, and the other side of being willing to accept the risk. We're proceeding with caution.
And although this is something that we've been looking at and it's a promise that we've made to get to the customers, it's important to me that we do it right over doing it fast because all is that me? Who is that? Not on a wire. So although there may be people that would like to see this expedited, those customers are probably the same ones that would be unhappy if their personal data or their credit card information or anything else was compromised. And that's important to us that we don't compromise that data. Councilor
Can
Deep.
I just clarify? That sounded kind of accusatory. I didn't mean it that way. I meant, is there more support that you could have to get it to move faster?
We've leveraged just about everything we can possibly leverage at this point. I don't know that there would be another avenue
Okay.
Councilor McCabe, did you have a comment?
Mm-hmm.
My comment was just what was this in reference to, so
Right.
you clarified.
Okay, Finance Director, goes, keep going.
I don't know if there's anyone there, I had to put some in there.
Take, does that reach? Take mine.
Well, you're right. Will it reach?
That should be, actually.
That's what we do. Utilities.
Let's do that. You can take,
this one.
That's a good point. That's what we do. Ron,
oh, you don't plan on speaking anymore?
they just moved it down.
Got it all.
Okay, we have a mic for you, a directional mic. Okay. Continuing on,
So that's the overview for electric.
okay? Any other questions or comments on electric? Hearing none, go to the next one.
Now, do we wanna go to water, or do we wanna go to the front of the package to sewer?
Let's go to the front of the package and work through.
Alright,
Make at least one of the counselors happy, that's what I want to do. It's actually easier if we go from the, start from the front.
so again, the layout of this budget is the same as last year and very similar in, to the electric and the water, as far as the format goes. There's the initial narrative in the front, and then if we go to page 1, it has the detail of the revenue by source. So then if we go to page 2, and start with the summary, I'll go through this similar to how we did the electric. The total revenue budget proposed budget is just under 3.9 million, which is $1 million less than last year's adopted budget. And again, as we've heard the story throughout the year, based on the deduct meters at Pfizer, this brings us down to true actual numbers based on the best we could do for projection. So this does take into account that deduct meter that was included in last year's budget.
Councilor Depot.
I know they were on page 2, but on page 1, that second line, the north slope, what is that?
North Slope is the residential area that's in the town, West Pleasant Valley
Okay.
section, that their sewers come into the city sewer and they get charged. We bill the town.
Several years ago, before the most recent redistricting, the North Slope was in the city. And now, when you go up Grove Avenue, half of Grove Avenue is in the town, half of Grove Avenue is in the city. So, those houses were connected to our sewer, and that's referred to as North Slope. About, I think, 85 houses there, residences.
And we have an agreement with the town for that.
And we do, we have an agreement with the town, and we charge the town, then the town turns around and charges the residents.
So that's again the decrease with the revenue. The total operating and maintenance budget proposed is just under 2.7 million, or an increase of 160,000. So a 6% increase over the prior year.
And the major reason for that 150 or 160,000 was we added the pump stations into a routine maintenance program, very specifically.
And that'll show in the second grouping on the top, the sewer operations line, which is increased to 92,000. So if we go down to the very bottom, the operating earnings in the proposed budget is 823,000 compared to the prior year approved budget, which was just under 2 million, and again based on the decrease in the revenue from the deducts. is the change from in the operating.
Remind me again why the IT budget is going up so much?
Which one are you looking at, for the sewer?
Under the
yeah.
IT, it's going up 27%.
The non-labor IT expenses are going up 26.95%, or 242, and I do mine in total, not 60, 30, 10 when I speak to these numbers. 242,000. The major contributors to that are software licenses and vendor costs for upgrading operating systems and database platforms, which are coming to end of life and support. That's 130,000. We're replacing end of life and support network devices for 50,000. And we have increased costs for post warranty support for some of our network and server equipment. That's another 20,000. And then we have annual support and subscription costs for new software that's been acquired across the enterprise, and that's another 40,000. So those are the major contributors to our increase. Typically, our budget is flat, with the exception of a vendor annual support contract going up a routine 3 to 5% each year.
So would we expect the budget for the following year, the 2021, to go down a little bit then for IT?
Our budget changes based on expense needs. It doesn't maintain the same level. If I have a project that is not a capital project, an expenditure for software license upgrade, that isn't necessarily a capital expenditure, so it would appear in my O&M budget. So I do tend to fluctuate. It could go down 18% next year.
Okay.
It's not something that can be levelized and say it's gonna be 3% every year. So it's a little bit difficult for those reasons because of the Microsoft licensing end of life,
Yeah.
and others that I have to go with when they come to end of life.
Right. That was very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the next page truly just has the bond interest payments that are due on the debt, which brings down the approved or proposed 2020 budget to an operating income of just under 600,000. And again, you can see the difference from the approved 2019 budget was the $1,035,000.
Maybe point out operating earnings. That's a big deal.
Oh, so on the previous page, I think we talked about it, but maybe not. Maybe skipped over it. On the bottom of page 2 is the actual operating earnings. So the sewer is still projected to have an operating earnings with this budget of 823,000, and again, that's just 1.2 million, just under 1.2 million less than last year, based on the revenue reduction. So the expenses pretty much stayed fairly neutral. The decrease in the revenue is what is driving the change in the earnings budgeted lines. So if we flip through, and we'll get to the capital projects for the sewer, which starts on page 6. You see that this looks a little bit different than the electric and the water. There's two separate buckets here. The top one being the budgeted non-bonded capital projects of the 250,000. And then there's currently no bond funds available, so there's no bonded capital projects currently. If we do issue debt in the future, this will obviously change, but currently there is no bond funds available for the sewer. So that's why there's nothing in that bucket. And then the bottom bucket is projects that were projected or proposed to be put into the budget that they know are upcoming, that may or may need to be done in the current year, but we didn't want to, I thought process, and Ron, you correct me as we go through it, is we didn't want to earmark and kind of prioritize these when we don't really know the order that they're going to happen. So it was we know that we need to do the roof replacement blower for the building, blower in the building and the main building and the consulting services, but these other projects, we just kind of put them as an on hold, and if something happens, they'll be brought to you throughout the year.
Is there, so let's see, the projected ending cash balance is 1.6, just over 1.6 million. Is there an amount that we're attempting to reach that's like a comfortable amount in that account before we start, like all of these projects? Looking at the numbers, these projects that are on hold only equal $322,000, so looking at the ending cash balance, you'd say, oh, there's 1.6 million cash in there. Is there a number that we're looking to get that to before we're comfortable saying, okay, let's get these projects done?
There is, and if you remember when they did the cost of service study, they were projecting $1 million of capital expenditures every year, which we're putting on hold in an effort to build that up. I don't remember what the targeted cash balance was for the sewer, but based just on that piece alone, we're not close to that, being able to do those $1 million. We kind of want to do them, unless we issue debt in order to do them, issue bonds.
In the other accounts, the attempt was to make it to 3 months, at least 3 months.
I was thinking it was around 1.6, 1.9, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Based on the cost of service.
Yeah, they may have.
I mean, that may be the cash projection, we may be close there, but we're not doing the upgrades that was proposed that we should be with the cost of service.
In that, you are 100% correct. That is the money that we'd use to do that $300,000 worth of work. And we figured that it would be better to pay more attention to this account than less. So always come through and ask for the ability to spend. That way we're watching our cash on hand. In case there's an emergency, you want to have the cash. We're also gonna propose, we're currently going through all the policies, and one of the goals is to take the next fiscal year and get through our entire policy book, so that we've just updated them all. They're fairly antiquated. One of the policies that we're gonna go through is for each of the operating companies come up with a cash on hand policy, so that it gives the operating company a goal in rails, what's the minimum we really wanna keep that of, and what's the maximum we want to allow to get in there, so that, because if you're holding too much cash, you really need to relieve on rates a little bit. And if you're not up to enough cash, you can say, well, geez, we've got to work on something.
If I could add one thing on the capital projects and the strategy then. So what we're left with is the consulting services, and part of that is our strategy to apply for clean water funding and the possibility of up to 40% grant. So that's through the DEEP. So we were in touch with the lead woman in DEEP, and she said to apply for this funding, you need to have a facility plan. So we actually need two. We need one of the plant and one of the 9 pump stations. And then we need an asset management plan. So that's the second item. The resiliency planning is pretty much following the mayor's lead, on what the climate effect is going to do to the level of the river, and then getting some help from a consultant on filing the application is very important, so we get as high a priority ranking as we could possibly do. We have some experience on the water side. I think the first time our priority ranking was like 17, and when we finally got the funding, the loan and the grant, we were priority ranking number 1. But that takes a few years, but we wanted to start this process each year.
If you'll remember, one of the reasons that we moved the sewer out of the tax base into an enterprise account is to allow us to go after grants. And then to go after grants, we have to have the facility or the asset management plan. So that's what we're going to be doing. Any other questions right now on sewer? Okay, Ron?
And then the final page for the sewer, page 7, again, that's the customer care and the IT non-bonded that gets allocated across that.
Okay. Any questions on the sewer? Water?
So again, as you look at the water budget, it starts with a narrative, given the overview. Page 1, the revenues by sources. So if we skip, which will kind of browse through that one first. And then if we go to page 2, it's the overview of the budget, same layout as the other two that we've gone through. The proposed revenue for the 2020 budget is $10,656,000, or $126,000 more than the previous year. The total operating and maintenance expenses have increased proposed budget of 9.37 versus a prior year of 8.9 million, or an increase of 517,000 over prior year. And then if we look down at the very bottom, the operating earnings, the approved budget last year was 298,397, and the current proposed budget is a negative 55,688, which is a change of 354,000. And that's just the nature of the water. The water department cannot make a profit. So over the years, it's built the reserve up. So this is a way, in order to use some of that reserve up, you're actually budgeting to lose money essentially. But what you're really doing is using previous revenues that have come in and profits to offset that. So that's why it looks a little bit different than the other two.
Councilor Depot.
Explain that another way, how we're getting it to be a negative?
So when I'll kind of explain it like the city budget when we go through it, and we use the surplus of fund balance, and it's previous taxes that have gone into our fund balance. So it's essentially profits that we've collected in the prior years, and we're using that retained earnings to balance it.
So, but if we weren't doing that, where would the money come from?
We'd have to, in essence, we'd have to have an additional rate increase and increase the revenues, or find cuts in the expenditures.
Okay, so instead of increasing the water rate this year, we are using our reserves to offset
With the
budget,
right. Essentially, that's what's happening.
which is a good thing. Correct?
Well, out of a $10.5 million budget, $50,000 is pretty close to on target.
Well, yes,
To
and
be
it's also a
even
small
budget
amount.
neutral.
Yeah.
It's basically, collect what you're gonna spend, don't spend more than what you collect, on average.
But then when you flip to the next page, you'll see it kind of flip-flops. And what the driving force in that is the income from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which wasn't accounted for in the prior year, and that's the grant revenues coming in.
Oh.
So you'll see that the actual net earnings bottom line is proposed to be 2.2 million, where last year it was actually a negative 722,000.
You said that was due to grants.
Correct. Because as part of the water treatment plant project, the $54 million loan that we received, we also had a portion of that was coming through as a grant to do interconnects.
So the $54 million, $15 million is in the form of a grant. And then at the end, the $39 million is a low-interest loan that we will pay back.
And when we flip through again, going to page 6, which has the water division's non-bonded capital and bonded capital projects. So for non-bonded capital, they have proposed 906,000 of non-bonded capital and 2.2 of bonded capital projects. And this does not include the water treatment plant project.
If I can preempt the Councilor DeVoe's question that you gave to electric, of the bond capital projects, 3 of them are carryover.
Okay.
One, the Long Hill Pump Station is a carryover both of the project and the cost. The Walker Hill is a carryover for the project, but the cost is additional from this previous fiscal year we're in now. And meter replacement, it's a project carryover to the next phase. So the dollars weren't in last year's and they're additional.
Thank you.
And then again, the next page is the customer care and IT. Non-bonded.
Okay, anything else on water? Go ahead.
Oh, not
Councilor
on
D-
water. I have a general question.
Okay, have a general question then.
Well, looking at are you gonna go over this, are we going over this in any way, or is this just for information?
Either or. That org chart is the same as it was last year, with one addition. There was one additional janitor that was brought on board to help with this building and help with the facilities in general. That staff falls in the utilities budget. So that's the only staffing change right across the board.
So there's a handful of open positions on here. Those I presume they're all budgeted for
They're all budgeted,
already.
just unfilled.
Do we anticipate filling?
A few of them, I actually gave you my readable copy, so I'm gonna speak off what I know. A few of the ones that say open have been filled over the last few weeks, that last month or two. There might be 1 or 2 that are on hold a little longer than that we're gonna still go into further discussions with need or for a different position. But as a majority, all of them were filled at one point, and due to turnover or internal movements, we end up with a cascade of people. If you open a position internally and someone moves, now we go in a continual hiring circle, and it takes us a while to recover from that sometimes. And we are in the middle of one of those spirals right now, or have been for a few months.
It's a little worrisome to see 13 open positions.
Right.
On the chart.
About 10.
Okay.
Yeah, we are not at 10 right now. I think we're under 10.
You know, we have a plan. You go into HR, you'll see a list of the positions and what their current status is. Most of these are, the recs are out, some we're interviewing, some we're we've conducted the interviews. I have authorized the SCADA engineer and the electrical engineer. The environmental engineer is, I'm waiting on additional information, right? Environmental engineer, we're holding off on for a minute.
All 3 of them were approved.
Okay, so I approved all 3 of these.
Didn't you say it was difficult because you have to open up in-house first?
Well, it depends. If it's non-union, no. If it's union, we're required to open it up to that group first, and then we can then post outside. So what happens is you post it within a group, then if there's no one there, then you can post it to the union at large, and then outside at the same time. Any other questions on electric, water, sewer? Okay. Clerk Patrick, Can I move all, do you guys want to talk about the operating capital budget? Or is that included in what you did?
I think that was included.
Yeah.
Are the, okay. So, Clerk Patrick, my question is, can I move all three of these, can I get all three of these moved at one time? Or do I need to move each of the resolutions, one for water, one for electric, and one for sewer?
You can move it all at once. You can move it as utilities budgets for electric, water, sewer.
Okay, 'cause I have three separate resolutions here, I just wanted to make sure that I was okay. All right, I need a motion to move the electric, water, and sewer budgets to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, let's see, 7. Let's go to Groton Utilities Financials, which is 561. Okay, go ahead.
And this is the same packet that you receive every month, so in an essence of time, I'm just gonna kind of hit these very quick and just give kind of a year-to-date synopsis of where everything's at, and if there's questions, we can go through it, but. So from the month end, year-to-date for electric revenue, the actual is 47.7 million versus the budget of 46 million, so it's over, 1.6 million to the good. And then the net income from operations budgeted was 4.1 million. We're at 4.1 million year-to-date actual, so the variance is just under 32,000. So right on, electric is pretty much right on budget when you look at the net income from operations. The water, we'll just kind of go through that same thing with the water revenue. Was budgeted at 8.8 million, the year-to-date actual is 8.7, so about 112,000 under budgeted year-to-date. However, the net income from operations was budgeted at 254,000, year-to-date actual is 1.4 million, or just under 1.2 million, we're favorable. And then the sewer revenue, again, with the deduct, the budget was 4.1 million. It's currently at 3.6 million, or 546,000 under budgeted year to date. The budgeted net income from operations was 1.7 million. Currently, it's running at 1.44, or 251,000 underneath the budget amount, again, based on the shortfall in the revenues and the deduct meters. So it's just kind of a quick overview. I didn't want to spend too much time. It's the same reports that you've been receiving each month, but just to kind of let you know everything is on track when you look at the net income from operations from a budget to an actual. So I just kind of wanted to give a brief overview, just hit on it, and then next month we'll go back into a little more detail.
Any questions on utilities, the Groton Utilities monthly financials? Okay, we'll move on.
And if during the time that something does come up that you look at these and you have questions, feel free to either send them to the mayor's office, so you can forward them along, and we can get you the answers that you need if there's something that jumps out.
Okay, we're gonna go to 742, Groton Utilities. And the first one is revisions to purchasing policies and procedures.
So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the goals of the next fiscal year is to go through all of the policies that the Utilities Commission or Council has approved for the utility. This is the first one. I want to thank Sue Blanchette, our IT General Manager, for updating this policy and getting everybody on board to make sure we had a consensus. Sue, do you want to comment on anything major about the revisions?
Well, I think probably one of the most important pieces in the policy is the explanation of the sources of funding, because there seems to be, perhaps a lack of knowledge of where all the utilities funding comes from. It's not just the O&M budget, but there are restricted funds, there are a number of different sources of funds, and I think that's an important element to add to the document, and also to remove a lot of very detailed, specific, language that really was restrictive, that you just piece of paper on Tuesday afternoon. So there was a lot of excess language in there, and we streamlined it quite a bit. And this was an effort through all the managers going back to 2015 as well, so it wasn't just a one-person effort recently. It's been worked on by the entire group for quite some time.
Any questions on the purchasing policy? I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of June 3rd.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, the next thing is to approve change order 6.
I can start with a generalized summary, and if there's harder questions, either Rick can answer or back me up. Basically, as we move this project forward, there's differences in what they find in the specification for RH White to build. So the engineer takes a look at what they're recommending doing, and we get either credits or debits of change order number 6 has 12, I think 12, 13, 14 debits or credits. And they're on the order of magnitude from, $22,000 to a credit of $5,000 or $3,200 or something like that. And each one is explained in the change order document. And the net of all that is an add of $34,400. After Stantec, our engineer, who's hired to help manage the project, looks at that and they evaluate it. It goes through a GU project manager, Ray Valentini, who is not with us tonight. Ray validates all the pluses and minuses. He's helped with Mike Weber, an on-the-ground project manager. They look at they agree with Stantec's recommendations. Then for this project, since it's funded through the DWSRF fund, it goes to the state for a third level approval that the state says, yes, we will pay for this, this is good, this goes into the project. We sign off on it. Then we bring it to the Utility Commission, and now to you to sign off on the change order. The change order is to the main RH White construction contract, which is on the order of magnitude of 42 or 40, a little over 43 million at this point.
Yes, Rudy.
So the change is to increase the cost, but is that increase coming out of the contingency that was already set aside
Yes.
for this project?
Yes.
So it's not an added cost to the project as a whole, it's an
Nope.
added
No, it's
cost
not.
to the amount that we're actually using, but that added cost is just coming out of the contingency that's already been budgeted.
Right.
And do you have, then the amount of that contingency that's already been used?
Out of $4.728330 million, and actually 76 cents, with change order number 6, we're up to 52. We have 52% of the contingency remaining. So that was a spend of $2.4944 million so far through change orders. So the remaining contingency is 2.1519.
And how far percentage-wise are we through the project?
The project will finish, is it October 1st of next year?
So there's 2 phases of the project. The new construction of the plant, hopes to be finished by Christmas. But then it's gonna be another, then they move inside to the plant, and that's gonna take another 8 to 10 months.
How long has it been going so far? We've used 52%. Are we basically 50% through the total?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, in your learning about the PCB change orders and the reasons why we have this much contingency budgeted, probably with a future change order as it relates to PCB encapsulation.
And on that too, if any of the counselors who are new would like to schedule a tour of the facility, you could come to the operations committee of desk and how that, and get a personal tour.
I would.
Yeah, we should probably offer that to all the council, not just the new guys, but not just the new counselors, but everybody. Okay, anything else on approved change order 6? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, that's 8. 9 is, okay, I think that's it for you guys. Utilities is done. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you, staff, for what you do every day.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna go to number 1, which is the appointment. This is the appointment of Barbara Garish to be a member of the Ledge-Lake Health District Board of Directors. The term will expire November 2019. The reason it expires in 2019 is because her previous one expired November 10th, 2016. So we were behind in getting this to you. We are getting our arms wrapped around this, and we'll be bringing you more recommendations for boards and commissions.
So she's currently on the board, and she's been there almost 3 years now?
She's in an expired.
Okay, so, okay, got it.
She was on the board before, reappointed, and then it expired. And in the process of going through this with, going through the boards and commissions, we identified some that are older than others.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
Do I so move? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Okay, 6:45 is group referrals. One thing I'd like to do is get a consensus from you guys to remove noise abatement from the referral list because it was recommended to be removed. And so what happens is when things get submitted to your committees and then you guys complete them, then we need a motion to move them or to remove them from the group referral. So this was recommended before, now it's ready to be removed. So all I need is a consensus, I don't need a motion.
I have a question. About noise abatement, do we know why it was originally put on here and what happened?
Yeah, it was originally, there was a complaint about noise, so we looked at noise abatement. Well, the issue is we had a citizen's complaint on noise, and you'll notice that we don't have a noise ordinance, so we basically fall into state statute. Because the problem, and this is the challenge that the town council has, is when you look at a noise ordinance, then if somebody calls and says, hey, I got a noise problem, the police then show up. But usually by the time the police are there, the noise problem's gone, right?
Is it noise from neighbors, noise from traffic, noise from businesses?
All of those things.
Okay.
The
So
traffic, it wouldn't be traffic though. It'd be more like if you're
Well-
working on something next to somebody's house at 4 in the morning. You
Let's
know?
say, for example, somebody decides,
Clarence B.
Somebody-
Sharp gets loud.
well, let's say, for example, somebody decides that they're gonna mow their yard
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. Or let's say you have somebody that's driving their car through your neighborhood and they have their speakers on loud so much that the car vibrates. Or let's say someone is firing off fireworks for the 4th of July. Those are singular events
Sure.
to where you might have complaints. So that's what drove it. So, let me think.
You want to remove it?
So all I need is a consensus from you guys to remove it.
Yeah.
Okay? So we'll remove it. So I want to add to the group committees, city cleanup day. And basically it was a recommendation from residents to basically have a day, kind of like Earth Day or another day to have, where we have a city cleanup day in the city. So I'd like to refer that to the community development group. And then sober home regulations, I have something from New London that they've passed, because we do have some sober homes in the
What
city.
does that mean,
What's
sober
that?
homes?
So what a sober home is, so let's say, for example, someone is in an alcohol or drug treatment program.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, they're going through rehab, and then after rehab, in an effort to acclimate them back into society, they will be in a
Okay.
it's not really a dorm-like atmosphere, but it's a home where you have several people that live there, and one of the things that they have to do in order to stay living in that house is to stay sober, and they help them get a job, they help them with training, and help
Okay.
them through their addiction process. Is that accurate? Okay.
What
committees?
don't they already have those things?
Well, we have,
In the city?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's
I don't
referring
know.
regulations for them.
Oh, what, did somebody complain about them?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
We-
we already
we-
have them.
yeah, we,
There's a female home up on, it's
In a
right
secret
outside.
location?
we have
Yeah.
them, well, don't give them specific
No,
location.
there's like
But
a-
we do have
right next to
sober,
the,
Yeah, we know what you're talking about.
we do have sober homes in the city.
Okay.
And so, this is just a referral to go to the committee to look at it. And I'm gonna refer that to community development. The city garden, we have, if you've noticed, we have, I think it's either 6 or 8
Yes.
raised bed gardens. And so I'm gonna refer this to, I don't know who that would go to.
that's the beautification, though, right?
Well, we don't have a beautification committee, we have, it wouldn't fall under economic development, public works, public safety, community development, finance, parks and rec.
No, I think it would go under what Jill was in charge of last time, because
Community development.
that's community development, right?
Community development again? Okay.
Because it was with the signage, remember that?
All right, we'll
Whatever
do
was
that.
part of.
And that is, basically like a community garden.
Yeah.
To look at it possibly for next year. There had been a woman, when I first, became mayor, there was someone that was interested in doing that and expanding it to other neighborhoods in the city. And, for personal reasons, there were things that came up and she could no longer do that, but I think it's a good idea.
Oh, I think it's a great idea, and if we could get the kids involved and actually have a booth at the farmer's market where
Sure.
the kids can grow their own stuff and actually sell it, things like that,
Yep.
to get,
Absolutely. And so the next to last thing is dog park. There have been some requests from people that walk their dogs around to have a dog park here somewhere in the city where where it's fenced in and the dogs can run free.
mm-hmm.
Because we have one in the town, we don't have one in the city. So I'm gonna refer that to
Kinda
Parks
have
and Rec.
one. We kinda have one. It's not a real dog park, but across the street from the Bill Library.
The Bill Library.
Yeah.
It's not fenced in though, so
It's
you
not
can't.
fenced in, but that's where a lot of people go there.
I know.
Yeah. I think, don't they have poop bags and
Yeah,
stuff over
yeah.
there?
They
Yeah.
do. We have there, and if you go down on Shore Avenue, near where
It's
Griswold
cost-
Point is,
Where?
Griswold Point, do you know where that is? Do you know where the old where the old Griswold Hotel used to
Pretty
be?
cool.
Down on Shore Ave, you know where the big cove is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then that cement pier?
Yeah, the little,
That park right there, some people call that a dog park.
yeah, the little beach area
Yeah.
that goes high. Yeah,
Right.
people go in there.
So they're up there, we have dog bags there as well.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna refer that to Parks and Rec. The Youth Advisory Committee, I'm gonna refer that to Parks and Rec. And then
Oh, yeah.
the one that Mary briefed us on,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then the Town Council, City Council, RTM Board of Ed Liaison Committee, I still need somebody to volunteer for that, so if you guys
Are you
can
still
let
on
us
the
know.
RTM?
No, I'm not.
No.
But I
Oh,
would,
you
I would,
resigned.
yeah, I did resign.
Yeah.
I'll
You wanna do that? All right. And did you guys, contact Jill with your, sizes for shirts?
No.
I'll get her to contact you guys. I'll get her to reach out.
And I need to talk to the IT department, but I lost the number of who to talk to about my email.
I'm gonna give you that in just a second.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that too.
So Minerva,
They called me,
Minerva, Lisa, and Reggie.
Or should I say,
I know.
Minerva, Lisa, and Reggie need to call IT support.
And Rashad.
And Rashad, okay, at 860-446-4070 to get your email set up.
860-446-4070.
4070. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's that. Let's go to number 11. Trying to step through quickly here.
Number 11.
That was 11. Oh, city budget presentations under 690.
Again, I'll keep this very brief. This is the handout that we started doing beginning of this year. And it's just a summary of the general fund expenditures through April 30th, 2019 by department. Kind of summed up, just so you can kind of see an overview of where all the departments stand with the percent remaining of their budget through April 30th. And the big one that jumps out, I think I get asked every month, the boards and commissions
Yeah.
of the 15.5, that is our actuary, and there was actually some bills that were paid in May and another one going out in either later this month or June, so that's why that one's still unspent. It's just a one-time, or a couple times a year, that's just later towards the end of the year.
Gotcha.
But if you can see, there's nothing that really, there's no department per se that jumps out with a concern at this point through April. Once we get through the end of this month is when we really will start focusing in. I mean, right now, we're looking to make sure there's nobody that looks like they're gonna have potential overages, which it doesn't appear to be. But come the end of May is when we're really gonna start focusing in on individual department budgets, and then probably have meetings with the department heads to see where they are year to date, because they will only have the 1 month left.
Have we sent that email out yet about encumbrances?
No, it'll be going out either later this week or early next week.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any questions on city budget presentation? Okay, we'll move to 748, which is a donation request from the Groton Lodge of Elks.
Is this something you do
So
annually?
we
or-
have, well, yep, hold on, let me catch you up. There is a, whoops, that's not the right one. We have an ordinance It basically says that the city council has $5,000 per year at their discretion. And they can't spend more than 20% of it on any one donation, and that the donations, there's some specifics about it needs to apply to the city for the good, I don't remember the exact words, but for the good, basically for the good of the city. And this year, we have spent $4,050.
That's my next question. Is
So
how much?
$4,050, the end of the fiscal year is 30 June. So they're asking for $100. We do have $100.
We've spent year-to-date 4,200.
Okay, you updated it then, okay, sorry.
Because we had the 150
You're right.
from Sacred Heart that was approved
Okay, thank you.
for that golf tournament.
I'm working, this is why I bring you here. So that
So
you
you,
can keep me in line.
so you have 800,
So we have
There's
$800 left. They're asking for $100 for a tea sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Deeper.
I would just comment that the Elks do a
Mhm.
ton of stuff for the community, and
for us
it's
too. They
well
donate
worth
to us.
donating $100 to them,
Okay.
I think.
Well, do you want to do more than one tea? It's up to the council. We do have, this is the last, that's not true. Well,
Don't know what's gonna
it's the last meeting in May, so now we're getting ready to go into June.
Mhm.
The end of June is when we're done with these.
Just one that I will, and I don't know this stat, I'm just gonna kind of going back to last year. We did do a donation to Riverfront that came through, and it came through the June cow. The actual check wasn't issued until July, but we did revert it back to the previous year's
That is-
allotment
That is
because
correct.
of when the timing of it, when it did come in.
That is correct.
And we have not seen anything from Riverfront at this time. I don't know what their,
And their request was larger than what we have remaining, as I recall.
it was, last year was $1,000.
Yep,
That was,
it was last year.
We
Well, you could
we can always
always,
just can we all as a council just approve to donate to them to the riverfront, right?
Well,
We
they
can-
haven't asked for anything, so.
No, but I'm saying we could don't use a certain amount of money for the Elks, and then us say we approve to give Riverfront say $500 or whatever it is, you know,
the
and just
remaining
give
balance.
right.
give them,
Another
you know.
strategy could be to wait until July if Riverfront didn't have a deadline date on it, and give it in next year's budget, if, should that arise. I mean, there are a couple different strategies we could use. Councilor Depot.
I was just gonna say, if we're balancing amounts, I would err on the side of giving more to Riverfront, only because their pool of request, who they can request money from, is probably much smaller than the Elks. The Elks have much more capability of fundraising, I would imagine. So I would err on the side of giving more to the Riverfront if we're choosing.
How much
but
do
we,
we have
but we
But we
haven't
don't have a
received anything
request.
from
Right, but
Riverfront
I
at this
mean-
point. At this point, the only donation request that we have currently open that has not been acted on is the Elks.
Okay.
So what is the wishes, what is the desire of the council?
So the 5,000 has to be depleted at six.
Doesn't have to
be,
no.
doesn't have to be
Okay, okay,
completed.
okay.
In 2016, we only spent 1,500. 2017, we spent 4,000. Last year, we spent 4,000, and right now, we're at 4,200.
Okay.
That's the maximum. that
We could just do the easy thing and just give the Elks what they're asking for.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give the Elks, and then if River,
Then we'll give then
100% of what they ask.
I need a motion to move this in the amount of $100 to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, that's 12. 13 is 750, which is the appointment of the city attorney. The charter requires us to approve the city attorney after we're elected. We currently have Burcham and Moses. Bertram, Moses, and Devlin. Actually, it's Bertram and Moses, right? Is Devlin still there? I'm gonna verify the name. I think this might be a carryover. I'll verify the name on this. They are our current attorneys. They've been our attorneys for a while, and we are currently using them in the contract negotiations that we have. Will be, but in theory, by the end of this fiscal year, we will be engaged in all eight bargaining units, collective bargaining agreements, rather. Councilor Depot.
Do we have a contract with them that ends at a certain time?
No.
We have just have an agreement with them as far as what the rates are, and kind of it's verbal, and this is truly just the appointment that is per the charter. And we use multiple attorneys throughout their firm for different things, so it's not just one.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the ethics hearing was one attorney. We have Brian LeClaire that supports Carlton Smith and Dennis Godare on the boards and commissions when they need reviews. Matter of fact, Brian was instrumental in reviewing the electric boat permits and things in order to help get them through planning and zoning. So that was important to Steve Studer. Chris Heisen is the one that does the
labor.
Thank you, labor, and that includes arbitrations and grievances.
I'll make a motion to put it.
Okay.
A second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. 751 is, it's the council's rules of procedure. There it is. So according to the charter, we're required to come up with the council's rules of procedures. What you guys have in front of you is the rules that we adopted in 2017 for the 2017-19 term.
How often are committee meetings?
They're the
Group
second.
committees?
Yeah, the group committees.
Group?
They're the second Monday of every month,
Thank you.
unless it's a holiday, then it's Tuesday.
Second Monday of every. What time usually?
You can determine your own time. They are scheduled for 7:30 unless you choose to do it earlier, and then I would just put out an agenda as a special meeting. It's never an issue. In fact, nearly everyone prefers earlier, especially when you have staff. When you request staff
Yeah.
come, it's always better to do it earlier because then they're not sitting here till 7:30.
So, we as council members put out an agenda for
No,
these?
I will take care of all your agendas.
Okay.
Now, you are responsible, the chairs are responsible for their notes. They handwritten, there's a form that Deb will give you for when it started, who was there, and then what the line item number was, the agenda number was, and any discussion and votes. You have to document votes
Okay, and then we report on it back
at the
at the,
committee of the whole.
No,
okay,
no.
Well,
no, at the count,
at the
next
council meeting.
at the
Council
third-
meeting.
The third
Okay.
week council
Right.
meeting. But what you'll do is those notes, you will slide under the door of my office, and then the next day I will take them and turn them into minutes, and then I'll give you a copy of them.
Okay.
Got terrible handwriting.
You know, that's, you're good. She's good, she can decipher.
All right, so I need a motion to move the council rules of procedure to the mayor and council meeting of June 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, 753 Groton sale. This is informing. The Groton sale is the sail and the rudder of the decommissioned USS Groton. There was a sale committee that was established several years ago. The city and town had talked about finding a place to put the sail. At one point, we were going to put it. We were negotiating with the landowner near where the current submarine memorial is, beside Circle Motors. Those negotiations have appeared to fall through. We looked for other locations. One of the locations was at the Costa property, but when Chad Frost of Kent Frost Architects looked at it, it would require the purchase of the house and then the demolition of the house in order to have room and possibly parking. And all that, there was going to be a cost for that, and they weren't sure if they were going to hit ledge or not for the parking. So another site was recommended and was accepted by the sale site location committee, which is next to the library. So if you're down at the library where the senior center is, that strip of land between the 117 and the library right there in front of the library, you guys know where I'm talking about? Across from the school?
Yeah, across from
Oh,
Colchester.
yeah.
So the library, and then what strip of land are you talking about?
Well, it would be the you know where 117 is, running right in front of the library.
Mm-hmm.
So between that road and the trees, some of the trees would have to be moved down. They're gonna put a sail there. We saw a rendering of that. They went to the town council because that requires getting a right-of-way from the state. Or basically, they were gonna try to get the land for free. They may end up having to lease it. I'll get into that in just a second. The town council was concerned. That night, I was unable to attend the meeting. It was an executive session because there was a potential for a land purchase. But the town council had not heard from the city that they were okay with having it in the town. And they did not want to commit 100% until they heard from us. Then there was an opportunity to reach out to Representative Chris Conley and Representative Joe Delacruz to, as a legislative action, as a House bill, to submit it so that the land swap would occur. That, I submitted a letter in support last week, and today people went to the State House and testified in front of the committee. It was fast-tracked, and Town Manager John Burt asked me if I would bring it up to the council, one for informing, but to basically get a consensus that, you know, we're not going to object or get in the way of that land swap of putting the sale there. So that's what I bring to you.
I mean,
Mostly informative. Councilor Deep.
we've talked about this before, looking for a place to put it, and it doesn't seem like there is a reasonable place to put it in the city at this time, so I don't see any reason why we would object.
Well,
Sort of putting it at the beach or something.
well,
Where would you put it?
It was, you know, I would love to see it in the city because I think it's a better fit than in the town. However, it's been 4 years since this committee's formed, and they want to move forward because there's, the potential is they're not gonna be able to get donors because they've taken so long. And EB's gonna be, right now the sale is up at the base, it's being sandblasted. And then EB will be using it as a training project to train their welders how to weld on that type of material. And, but if we don't move quicker than what we're moving now, there's a potential that all those opportunities will be lost. So that's why I wanted to bring it to you guys. Okay, and then the last thing is 550, which is the capital improvement projects bonds, the lot SIP Aquatic Road and paving Elderkin Avenue.
I'm gonna keep this very brief.
I was gonna say, Ron, this is your,
I make move.
So the first one,
that brief.
so the first one is the lots at Aquatic Road. And this is something that we submitted a number of years ago for the lots of project for Aquatic Road, which was a grant from the state of Connecticut, which would allow the complete full depth reclamation of Aquatic Road. This is just kind of a little history. It went off the table and it finally did come back on in 2018, the grant, and we received notice December 27th, 2018 for the commitment to fund the Aquatic Road project at an estimated initial price of just under $2.2 million. With that, the LOTSIP grant covers the construction and the engineering, administration, and inspection piece of it. However, the municipality that applied for this is responsible for the design, engineering, and the bid documentation piece for the construction project. So there is a piece that we are responsible for. We went to the town council in February, I believe it was, and we had some bond fund money remaining from when we issued the town issued the road bond fund. In that, we had originally set aside 200 and some odd thousand for Aquatic Road, just a mill and overlay. That would have kind of just been like I said, a mill overlay, not the full depth reclamation. So with this, we went to the town and requested that we use some of our bond fund money to pay for that design engineering portion, which we put in $220,000, which is roughly 10% of the project price as kind of a placeholder for that. The town approved that we could use that money for that purpose. So in essence, we had to go out, and now this comes back to for the city, we have to go out and do a bid to find an engineering firm to do the design work, the bid administration, and the construction documents. And then we also included the third phase, which is that construction, admin, and inspection, and tried to do it as a package. However, the state will need to approve and be part of that inspection piece of it, because they're going to be funding it. So we put a bid out that closed last week, and in your documents here, it was the letter for the commitment to fund, and then on the very last page is just the summary of the engineering firms and where the pricing came in at. We have not vetted these yet. You'll see there's a big discrepancy when you go to the totals. So the total for phase 1 is what would be coming out of the town road bond fund. Phase 2 would be the piece that is paid for by the LOTSIP grant, and then the total is all of it combined. There were different variances within those when we did our quick review during the bid opening of how many hours. For example, with the administration and inspection, that I believe one of them had 2 days a week for X amount of weeks, where somebody else had an inspector there all the time. So we're in the process still going through these. The reason why we wanted to present this to you was just so it wasn't the first time you were seeing it if we did bring an engineering firm to a mayor council meeting. Just because this is time sensitive. The plan is to get the design work done and there's different phases that have to be met, where for the state to approve the design work, I think there's a 30, 60, a 90, and then 100%. So they need time to review as well. And we're hoping to try to bid this project from a construction standpoint in the December timeframe to hopefully start with an April, May of next year construction work, but to try to bid it in the winter months before contractors are getting busy and getting their work lined up.
So what span of Quonic Road from
So
where
this
the
is gonna-
city entrance is by?
No, so it's gonna go all of five, we'll go the other way. So from Five Corners, it's gonna
Yep.
be the entire Five Corner intersection,
Mhm.
all the way down right to the bottom before Rainville.
Okay.
So it's not gonna do the other side of that.
So it's a light at the.
Yeah, at the light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
that's my
before
neighbor. I
that.
live there, so
At
in that
Rain-
neighborhood. So.
Right. So the way I've said it is at that light at Rainville, all the way up to and including Five Corners.
Okay. And what are
Which
they
is-
gonna do?
Gonna completely dig the road up, remove,
It-
all of the,
Yeah, it's a full depth reclamation, which means there's a couple different ways to do these projects. You can do a mill and overlay, which is basically you grind off the top part
Yeah.
and then you,
Yeah,
right?
you repave.
Right. Full depth reclamation is you rip everything up down to the base and you start fresh with fresh base with the gravel and the different layers that they have.
What's the benefit versus for?
20 years versus 5 or so.
well, underneath that, there's all concrete, and the trolley tracks, I believe, are still there. We did a small portion of Pequannock from the Five Corner down to Eastern Point a
Right.
few
Okay.
years back, and it was the same thing. We did a full depth for that.
Okay.
Right, we did, what you find is that with the trolley tracks, the fact that the wood is rotting, and then you have concrete on top of that, the rotting of the wood is actually eating away at the concrete. So the infrastructure is basically demolished, being compromised from underneath. And so they're gonna dig all that up.
How long ago was the trolley there? Just
19 something, right? 1900, early 1900s, maybe even 1800s. But we ran into the same thing on Thayer Street
Yeah. Okay.
when we did our test bits. Councilor Debo.
Question on that. When we redo the roads, are we also redoing the sidewalks?
There's a portion of it. It's not gonna be all of the sidewalk.
Right.
There is a component of it that does do some of the sidewalks. And there's some drainage that's included with this. There is an ADA piece of it with the sidewalks to make sure from a compliance standpoint that we're working through as well.
So drainage, sewer, adding sewer.
MS4.
outlets or-
So drainage is part of the MS4, the stormwater drains.
Correct.
And then we have reached out to Groton Utilities, both sewer and water, because some of the oldest pipes are on that road,
Right.
to get them to try to either do something this year or beginning of next year or during the project, but hopefully not to interfere in the project. Because one of the concerns that I have, and I've expressed it to these guys, is during the compaction process, that's where old pipes can get damaged. And what I don't want to do is dig up the road again.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I had to
Right.
sign a piece of paper that said that we had contacted electric, water, gas, phone, everything, and that there was no maintenance expected in the foreseeable future, because potentially this is a 20 or more year project that'll last. That's what we're trying to do.
Right. Okay.
Any other
So
do I
there's
need
no,
to
there's
move
no,
this?
there's no action on
No
this
action.
because we don't have anything to move. We haven't
Okay.
concluded our bid. We just wanted to make this informative,
This is
so that
informative.
way, just to keep it moving, we didn't wanna have to wait till the June committee of the whole
Yeah.
and then get it approved in July if we can get this vetted.
I may want to take back something I said earlier about the GU budget. I think we have moved them separately in the past, and you could certainly make motions now to do that instead of the single motion that we have.
Okay. Then Okay, let's get through this, and then I'll give you the three different motions. Ron, are you,
Yeah, that's
any
the,
other questions or comments on this?
and
Okay.
then, and then the next one is, another road that is, being paid for out of the bond fund, road bond fund through the town. That was again approved by the town council. That hadn't been, through this council yet, and that's Elder Ave. So that's proposed to be paved this year at a cost of around 87,000. So when you build a contingency, roughly 96,000, which will come through as a resolution. And I believe that's still through Patrick on the state bid. I just want to confirm, because at one point we weren't bringing these through the council, but we made a decision a few years back that we should bring them through, even though there's no funds coming out of the city, because the invoices get sent over to the town and paid directly from the town, but that way you are aware of that and that we go through the same process.
Councilor Depot.
Not to be a broken record, but on Elderton, when we paved that road, are we redoing the sidewalks? I think, if I remember correctly, most of it are perfectly fine, but in the back of the cul-de-sac, those are kind of, last time I was there anyways, are crumbling a bit, and the sidewalk doesn't go all the way around the cul-de-sac area.
I'm not sure. I know that they've been doing work down there.
Okay.
I don't know. Is the finance guy? I haven't gone out and inspected.
Well, I'm just wondering
No,
if the sidewalk
they
is
have
included
been.
in the project.
They have been doing sidewalks over
Okay,
there.
you wanna know about the sidewalk?
But I can
the
find out.
cul-de-sac?
Yeah, just because the sidewalk for that whole road is really nice, and then you go to the end, at least, again, last time I was down there, and it's kind of crumbling, and it's kind of the different
I'll reach out and I'll let you know.
thing.
I'll reach out and I'll let the council know, not just one councilor, I'll let everybody know, so everybody knows.
And then this is just an informative that has the other projects that were approved when we did go to the town for the bond fund, and which has already been approved by the council, was Benham Road, and that's going Rainville to Mitchell currently, just because we need to reallocate the other portion of that back to the Bequonic Road piece. So that's estimated at 105,000. And then the Shore Ave seawall drainage engineering, that's just been an ongoing project. So we still have 20,000 allocated to that. So just so that way you're aware of what we went to the town for and we're approved to use that bond funds for.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that? All right, back to Groton Utilities. I need a motion to move the Groton Utilities electric budget to the mayor and council meeting of 3 June.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. I need a motion to move the Groton Utilities water budgets to the mayor and council meeting of June 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. And I need a motion to move Groton Utilities sewer budget to the mayor and council meeting of June 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay. Get back to my agenda. We do not have an executive session, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
We have a motion and a second. We are adjourned.